Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 9th, 2023 legislative session of the Salisbury City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone, and I have a brief safety announcement. If there should be an emergency during the meeting, we will ask you to leave in an orderly fashion the council chambers and make a right-hand turn, go to the end of the hall and down the stairs. If for some reason that exit is blocked, please make a left-hand turn, then a right-hand turn to the end of the hall and down those stairs. Please do not use the elevators if there is an emergency. If you need assistance, please ask and it will be provided to you. Please rise now and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Pastor Dickerson is not able to be with us tonight, so at this time I'd ask, please, for a moment of silent meditation or prayer. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the legislative agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Blake, Mrs. Gregory. I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the legislative agenda as printed, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the chair votes aye. The legislative agenda is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boda, Ms. Blake. Good evening, Mrs. Nichols.
Good evening. On the consent agenda tonight, we have the November 21st, 2022 work session minutes, November 28th council meeting minutes, December 5th work session minutes, December 12th council meeting minutes, and the December 19th work session and special meeting minutes, and resolution number 3203, approving the appointment of Christina Williams to the Sustainability Advisory Committee for term ending January 2026.
Thank you, Mrs. Nichols.
Thank you.
I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. The consent agenda is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve the award of bids.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boda, Mrs. Gregory. Good evening, Ms. Jennifer. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. The first item this evening is an award of bid for invitation to bid ITB number 23-112. It's a sanitation truck. So let me give you a little bit of a history on this one. Last May of 2022, council approved an award of bid under ITB 22-126. This was for a sanitation truck. So with the sanitation truck, this is to International of Delmarva to buy the cab and chassis, and to Mid-Atlantic Waste Systems to buy the body. We just recently found out that International of Delmarva had their dealer allocation cut, which means we were left with going to be left with a body and no cab and chassis. So we had to resource a cab and chassis. That's what this new contract that I'm bringing to you is for. We were able to source one from a new vendor, a vendor we haven't worked with before, Beltway International out of Baltimore, Maryland, actually using the same cooperative contract number as previous, Sourcewell contract. The price is a little bit higher. This is common in this market, post-COVID with the price fluctuations. So what we're looking to award here today is this contract to Beltway International for a cab and chassis under the Sourcewell cooperative contract that I have noted in your packet. The price, I put the different prices in your packet so you could sort of see the difference. The new cabin chassis is going to be that $106,000 item. The original price from International Delmarva on same cabin, about same cabin chassis would have been the $99,000.
I remember.
So that's the price difference between the two.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. The other items this evening are just surplus items from the Salisbury Police Department. There are 55 Stetson brand straw hats, 70 pairs of police auxiliary pants, 2 seized vehicles, 3 SPD vehicles, a skid steer loader, and retiring the police canine for adoption.
I do have questions about the straw hats.
I was wondering
Did you
about
want me
that
to pull
too.
one aside for you?
That's all she needs is another dog or cat.
I'll give you the dog and the
I
hat.
think the dog's claimed.
And this,
Who's going to do the
Chucky.
adoption? Are we handling the adoption, or is it?
It's, K9 is staying with the handler. The handler has left.
Oh, fantastic,
And the dog is at the time where it's
fantastic,
aged out.
fantastic. Good, good. Then
do we have any plans to replace Chucky?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are in the works on a local dog that is available right now. So we're heading down that path. And then in the near future, Hank is close. So we're looking for another dog as well.
Hank's a good dog.
good.
Thank you.
Our best regards for Chucky, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, honestly, just go back to the straw hats. What is that about?
They've been, what's this?
That's what they were used for. I mean,
They're old.
Son?
They're
Being
very
a
old.
son?
It's prior to my time here.
okay.
Very prior to my time.
Hats.
I know the pants were used for the police auxiliary.
Okay.
Whoever wore these Stetson straw hats, I'm not 100% positive. They've been diligently cleaning out the supply room.
I can see they had a big
They
real
obviously-
for that.
They obviously should have started sooner. But that's okay.
I will make sure you all get one.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Any questions on those items? Hearing none, I'll call the motion then. All those in favor of the award of bids, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. The award of bids is approved by a vote of 4-0.
Thank
you,
you.
Mrs. Miller. Appreciate it. Have a good night. I'll entertain a motion to, before I forget, which I always do, and I apologize, I want to thank Christina Williams for volunteering for service on the Sustainability Committee.
And she is on Zoom.
She is on Zoom. Christine, I apologize. I should have said that earlier, but
We can't see you, but
we can't see you, but you can hear us, hopefully. And we can also hear you. Would you like to say anything?
Hi, yes, sorry, my camera wasn't working on my computer. Very happy to serve. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Good. We wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution number 3204.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Blake, Mrs. Gregory.
Good evening, council. Resolution number 3204, resolution of the council of the city of Salisbury to authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city of Salisbury a lease agreement between the First Baptist Church of Salisbury, Maryland, and the city of Salisbury. Whereas the city of Salisbury had a prior lease agreement with the First Baptist Church of Salisbury, Maryland, for property located on the southerly side of Booth Street and the northerly side of Douglas Place, which expired on or about May 13, 2021. And whereas the city desires to enter into another lease agreement with the First Baptist Church of Salisbury, Maryland, for the property in order to provide parking for the nearby playground and city amenities. And whereas in accordance with the foregoing, it is in the best interest of the citizens of the city to enter into the lease agreement attached hereto as Exhibit 1. And whereas by this resolution, the council hereby authorizes the lease agreement and hereby authorizes the mayor's execution thereof on the city's behalf.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council?
None.
Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of resolution number 3204, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Resolution number 3204 is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 3159.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boda, Mrs. Gregory.
Resolution
Glantz.
number 3159, a resolution of the City of Salisbury proposing the annexation to the City of Salisbury of a certain area of land situated contiguous to and binding upon the easterly corporate limit of the City of Salisbury to be known as Sharon Drive Annexation on the north side of and binding on Sharon Drive, the south side of and binding on Old Ocean City Road, Maryland Route 346, the east side of and binding on the current corporate line of the City of Salisbury, also being the current westerly line of PDD number 1, and west of but not binding upon Philip Morris Drive, and more particularly described in Exhibit A attached here too. And whereas the City of Salisbury has received a petition for annexation signed by at least 25% of the persons who are resident registered voters, and of the persons who are owners of at least 25% of the assessed valuation of the real property in the area sought to be annexed, and being located on the north side of and binding on Sharon Drive, the south side of and binding on Old Ocean City Road, Maryland Route 346, the east side of and binding on the current corporate line of the City of Salisbury, also being the current westerly line, PDD number 1, and the west of but not binding upon Philip Morris Drive, and particularly described in Exhibit A attached here too. And whereas the City of Salisbury has caused to be made a certification of the signatures on said petition for annexation, and has verified that the person signing the petition represent at least 25% of the persons who are eligible voters, and property owners owning 25% of the assessed valuation of real property in the area to be annexed, all as of September 23, 2021. As set forth in the certification of Leslie C. Sherrill, Surveyor of the City of Salisbury, attached here to an Exhibit B.
Questions or comments from the council?
None.
Okay, hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of resolution number 3159, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Resolution number 3159 is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 3160.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Blake, Mr. Boda.
Resolution number 3160, a resolution of the City of Salisbury proposing the annexation to the City of Salisbury of a certain area of land situated contiguous to and binding upon the easterly corporate limit of the City of Salisbury to be known as the Sharon Drive Annexation on the north side of and binding on Old Ocean City Road, Maryland Route 346, the east side of and binding on the current corporate line of the City of Salisbury, also being the current westerly line, PDD number 1, and west of but not binding upon Philip Morris Drive, and particularly described in Exhibit A attached here too. Whereas the City of Salisbury is considering the annexation of a parcel of land contiguous to and binding upon the easterly corporate limit of the City of Salisbury to be known as Sharon Drive Annexation on the north side of and binding on Old Ocean City Road, the east side of and binding on the current corporate line of the City of Salisbury, also being the current westerly line, PDD number 1, being all of map 0039, parcel 0269, lot 1 and 2, being more particularly described in Exhibit A attached here to and made a part of. And whereas the City of Salisbury is required to adopt an annexation plan for the proposed area of annexation pursuant to the local government article of the Maryland Annotated Code. And whereas pursuant to Maryland Code Local Government 4-406, a public hearing on this resolution, providing for the Council of the City of Salisbury's approval of the annexation plan for the City of Salisbury's annexation of the property as set forth herein, shall be and hereby is scheduled for February 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of resolution number 3160, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Resolution number 3160 is approved by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Glantz. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2764 for the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gregory, Mr. Boda. Ms. Boucher.
Good evening, everyone. Ordinance number 2764, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving an amendment to the FY 2023 general fund budget and the grant fund budget, further appropriating funds for the operation of the 2023 Maryland Folk Festival. This is before you for second reading. No changes or amendments since first reading.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2764 for the second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2764 for the second reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2765 for the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boda, Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2765, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury to amend Chapter 1, the International Building Code, Section 15.04020 of the City of Salisbury Municipal Code, granting the authority to require a new certificate of occupancy and inspection for any change of use group, owner, or tenant, and to clarify fire safety provisions regarding the fire marshal's enforcement powers. This is before you for second reading. Pursuant to your requested changes, legal did make a change to Section 1 of the ordinance, which revises Section 15.04020 of the City Code, subsection G, by adding the language that's found in lines 48 through 52. So I'm going to read to you the new section G with those changes. So I'm reading it as amended. And it reads as follows. Chapter 1, add section A, 111.1.1, change of use group, owner or tenant. No change in use group, owner or tenant of a building or structure shall be permitted wholly or in part until a new certificate of occupancy has been issued by the building official certifying compliance with applicable parts of this chapter and any other applicable state or local laws, ordinances, or regulations. This provision shall apply to a change of tenant for R2, change of owner or tenant for R3, or change of tenant for R4 structures. For purposes of this section, R2, R3, and R4 shall be defined in accordance with the International Building Code, year 2018. Further, this provision shall not apply to any property used for a residential purpose, which shall be defined as a property designed to be lived in or otherwise providing living accommodations.
Thank you, Ms. Boucher. I will need a vote for
May I
amendment.
make an amendment to amend ordinance number 2765 as read?
We have a motion by Mr. Boda to amend as read. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, you got it. Okay. Ms. Blake,
Scissors.
thank you. Questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion on the amendment first, and then we'll do the ordinance amendment. All those in favor of the amendments, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendments are approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the ordinance number 2765 as read. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2765 is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2766 for the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Blake, Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2766, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving a budget amendment of the Water Sewer Capital Project Fund budget to remove an appropriation for the Parkwell Field Project. This is before you for second reading. No changes or amendments since first reading.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2766, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2766 is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2767 for the second reading. Mr. Boda, Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2767, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving a budget amendment of the General Capital Project Fund budget to replace funding from bond proceeds for the Police Communications Project with pay-go from the GOB Roof Project. This is before you for second reading. No changes or amendments since first reading.
Questions or comments from the council?
None.
Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2767 for the second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2767 is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2768 for the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boda, Ms. Blake. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2768, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury approving a budget amendment of the FY 2023 general fund budget to appropriate additional funds required for field operations. This is before you for second reading. No changes or amendments since first reading.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2768, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2768 is passed by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2758 for the first reading.
So moved. Second.
Ms. Blake, Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2758, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury, Maryland pursuant to Chapter 17.108, 17.228, and 17.119.070 of Title 17, Zoning of the Salisbury, Maryland Municipal Code, and Title 4, Zoning of the Land Use Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland for the purpose of amending Section 17.119.020 of the Salisbury City Code by adding the area of Planned Development District Number 1, Robertson Farm, PDD Number 1, 2 lots totaling 3.55 acres, which together are on the north side of and binding on Sharon Drive, the south side of and binding on Old Ocean City Road, Maryland Route 346, the east side of and binding on the current corporate line of the City of Salisbury, also being the current westerly line of PDD Number 1, and west of but not binding upon Philip Morris Drive, and more particularly described in Exhibit A attached here too. Whereas the ongoing application, administration, and enforcement of Title 17 zoning of the City Code demonstrates a need for its periodic review, evaluation, and amendment in order to keep the provisions of Title 17 current, comply with present community standards and values, and promote the public safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of the city. And whereas Mayor and Council of the City of Salisbury are authorized pursuant to Maryland Code Local Government Article Section 5202 to adopt such ordinances not contrary to the Constitution of Maryland, public general law, or public local law, as Mayor and Council deem necessary to assure the good government of the municipality, to preserve peace and order, and to secure persons and property from damage and destruction, and to protect the health, comfort, and convenience of the citizens of the city. Whereas Mayor and Council may amend Title 17 of the City Code pursuant to the authority granted by Maryland Code Land Use Section 4102, subject to the provisions set forth in Section 17.228.020 of the Salisbury City Code. And whereas petitioner 2538 Old Ocean City Road LLC filed a petition for annexation dated May 20th, 2021, requesting annexation of property described in Exhibit A attached hereto, and desiring that the annexed property be zoned Planned Development District Number 1, Robertson Farm, PDD Number 1. And whereas petition was referred by the city planning staff to the Planning Commission, and after due notice on June 17th of 2021 at its regular meeting, The Planning Commission recommended that the property be zoned PDD number 1 upon annexation. The fulfillment of that recommendation requires a text amendment to the city code to add the legal description of the newly annexed property to the current legal description of PDD number 1. And whereas a public hearing on the aforesaid proposed text amendment and preliminary development plan for the requested addition to PDD number 1 was held by the Planning Commission in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 17.108 and 17.228 of Title 17 of the Salisbury Municipal Code on September 15th of 2022. On that day, the Planning Commission provided a favorable recommendation for the preliminary development plan as well as the aforesaid proposed text amendment. And whereas the City Council agrees with the Planning Commission's recommendation and finds that the proposed use of the property is appropriate for inclusion in PDD number 1. And whereas immediately prior to the approval of this ordinance, the City Council approved Resolution Number 3159 tonight to annex the City of Salisbury, the property known as Sharon Drive annexation described in Exhibit A, and to designate the zoning of said property as PDD number 1. Whereas the mayor and council have determined that the amendments to section 17.119.020 of the Salisbury City Code shall be adopted as set forth herein. Section 1 of the ordinance reads, and we are adding the bolded language and underlying language as follows. By amending section 17.119.020 of the Salisbury City Code entitled Area of Reclassification as follows. The area to be rezoned as planned Development District Number 1, Robertson Farm, consists of the following. Item 1, 45.4 acres of land binding upon the northerly side of U.S. Route 50 Service Road, both sides of the northeast Collector Road, the southerly side of Maryland Route 346 Old Ocean City Road, and the westerly side of lands now or formerly owned by Sylvia Brittingham Robertson, James Scott Robertson et al., United Dominion Realty Trust, Inc., and Philip Morris Drive condominiums being the same as shown on the preliminary subdivision plat prepared by ESP Design Services, Inc., and dated February 19th, 2003. The site is further identified as part of parcel number 2577 on State City Map number 121. Item 2, which is described as set forth in line items 69 to 90. This is what's being added. And we will just defer to the description as set forth in the ordinance, which was made part of the agenda tonight. Section 2, the zoning map on file in the preliminary and the Office of Planning and Zoning shall be amended to include item 2 in the area known as the Planned Development District Number 1, Robertson Farm. And Section 6, this ordinance shall take effect upon the effective date of annexation for Resolution Number 3159.
Thank you very much. There was a lot in this ordinance. Does anyone have any comments about it that they would like to make?
That's all in District 5, right? That, when they get annexed in?
Yes.
So I just want to make double, because I know we just did a new map, and
Yep.
I just wanted to just check.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2758, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2758 for the first reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2769 for the first reading.
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Boda, you two are in harmony.
I know.
Very good.
Much-
We'll give this one to Michelle.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2769, an ordinance of the City of Salisbury amending the Salisbury City Code to combine the Housing Board of Adjustment and Appeals, the Building Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and the Board of Zoning Appeals into a new board known as the Board of Appeals. Whereas the ongoing application, administration, and enforcement of the City Code of the City of Salisbury demonstrates a need for its periodic review, evaluation, and amendment in order to keep the provisions of the code current, comply with present community standards and values, and to promote the public safety, health, and welfare of the citizens of the city. Whereas Mayor and Council of the City are authorized by Maryland Code Local Government Article Section 5202, to adopt such ordinances not contrary to the Constitution of Maryland, public general law, or public local law, as mayor and council deem necessary to assure the good government of the municipality, to preserve peace and order, to secure persons and property from damage and destruction, and to protect the health, comfort, and convenience of the citizens of the city. Whereas mayor and council find that the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of the city will be furthered by amending the Salisbury City Code to combine the Housing Board of Adjustments and Appeals, the Building Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and the Board of Zoning Appeals into a new board known as the Board of Appeals. Whereas pursuant to Section 17.228.020 of the Salisbury City Code, any amendment to the Salisbury Zoning Code requires the recommendation of the Salisbury Planning and Zoning Commission prior to the passage of the ordinance amending the zoning code. Whereas a public hearing on the proposed amendment was held by the Planning Commission in accordance with the provisions of 17.228.020 of the Salisbury City Code on December 15th, 2022. Whereas at the conclusion of the December 15th meeting, the Planning Commission recommended by a vote of 7-0 that the amendment to the Salisbury City Code, including those sections found in the Salisbury Zoning Code set forth herein, be made by the approval of mayor and council. Whereas mayor and council have determined that the amendments to the Salisbury City Code set forth shall be adopted as set forth herein. So the section 1 of the ordinance, which starts in line 36 and goes through line bear with me, 3096. We are adding language that is bolded and underlined, and we are striking through language. And in a nutshell, we are going to defer again to the ordinance as proposed, which is set forth in the agenda. And in summary, any reference to any of the three boards is now being replaced with the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. We could have ordered McBurgers or something for breakfast, but yeah, I think that's a good summary. And I'll give you from sitting on the City Planning Commission, I think that the one thing that I would say is that one of the boards actually hasn't had a case in front of it for several years, and the other two it's hard to get staff to volunteers, I should say, to fill these boards, and fill three boards is 3 times as hard, obviously. So that's why the Planning Commission approved it by a vote of 7-0. Any other questions or comments?
I have 2 minor items. Now, I read this thing like 3 times.
You read the whole 5,000? Okay.
Line 71, we'll need a period after Board of Appeals.
You know what?
It got struck out.
You know what? Speedboat, we need to come on. We can,
Got it?
come on.
Line 1,573, there is a line where you're changing from section C, you're eliminating one section, making C B, there's a line through B, so whenever we're
Hold on, bear with me.
Tighten.
1,073, you said?
1,573. Those are the only 2 that I found.
I commend you.
The other
Yeah.
question I had was, and I didn't look at the fee schedule. Is the fee going to be $100 for an appeal? Because throughout the document, the $100 is struck out everywhere. So
Laura's jumping on.
So then we'll have to go back to the fee schedule to change the fees and do an amendment to that, I guess, soon.
Yes, I believe so. I'll let Ms. Hay in my office address that since she
Okay.
was the laboring oar on this one.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Laura Hay here. Can you hear me?
Hey, Laura. Yes, we can.
The voices in my head?
Great to see everyone via Zoom. So to answer your question, the goal with that was to have the fees set in a separate fee schedule and not contained in the body of the or in the code. So that way it can just be changed in
Yeah,
the fee
that's right.
schedule and not the actual code. The proposed fee schedule is not yet done. That is something that'll come in front of you. There's been some discussion about different kinds of cases, perhaps having a different fee associated with them because some of them are a lot more work than others. But that is something that DID is working on, and I expect they'd have it to you shortly.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
I'm good.
You're good? Any other questions? Okay,
Not for this.
I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2769 for the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2769 for the first reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2770 for the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gregory, Ms. Blake. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2770, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Salisbury amending and supplementing ordinance number 2223, passed by the council on October 22nd, 2012, approved by the mayor of the city on October 23rd, 2012, and effective on October 23rd, 2012, ordinance number 223, as amended and supplemented to date in order to, 1, authorize and empower the city of Salisbury to use and apply certain investment earnings on the $6,041,000 City of Salisbury taxable public improvement bond of 2012 issued on December 5, 2012, which is the 2012 taxable bond, to a project identified herein as raw water line at Naylor Mill Road, and 2, identifying such additional project as a project for all purposes of ordinance number 2223 as amended and supplemented, provided that this title is a fair statement of the substance of the ordinance, providing that the provisions of this ordinance shall be liberally construed and otherwise generally relating to the use of proceeds of the 2012 taxable bond. This ordinance was drafted by bond counsel, and in accordance with prior practice, we're just reading the summary up here.
Questions or comments from the council? How does that impact? We have our debt is due on the treatment plant next year, is it not, I think?
Andy,
Is that not?
he's thinking. He's not on.
Okay, we have to discuss this obviously during the budget. Because it's a big number, and now we can't use, since this is under water and sewer, right?
It's specifically tied to
Right,
any of that.
right. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a deep discussion about that during budget. Okay, any other questions from the council or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2770 for the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2770 for the first reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. After the fact, do we have a timetable on what that looks like? The raw water line
The project itself? Yes, we're every day making
in the
progress.
ground.
They will be doing the boring. There's a team in Baltimore that is finishing up an emergency break there. They're expected to be done within 2 weeks.
Oh, good.
And then assemble
Okay.
down here. I mean, the stars have aligned in a way
Yeah,
that
'cause
we're
that would
incredibly
be-
lucky.
That would be disastrous.
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2771 for the first reading.
So moved.
Mr. Boda, Mrs. Gregory. Ms. Boucher.
Ordinance number 2771, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Salisbury amending and supplementing ordinance number 2357, passed by the council on October 12, 2015, approved by the mayor of the city on October 14, 2015, and effective on October 14, 2015, referred to as ordinance number 2357, as amended and supplemented to date in order to, one, authorize and empower the city to use and apply certain investment earnings on the $4,726,200, again, that's for the record, 4,726,200 of the City of Salisbury Public Improvement Bond of 2015 issued on December 1st, 2015, referred to as the 2015 bond, to the project identified herein as raw water line at Naylor Mill Road, and two, identify such additional project as a project for all purposes of ordinance number 2357 as amended and supplemented, providing that this title is a fair statement of the substance of this ordinance, authorizing certain city officials to take certain actions in connection with the transactions contemplated by this ordinance, providing that the provisions of this ordinance shall be liberally construed and otherwise generally relating to the use of proceeds in the 2015 bond. This again was drafted by bond counsel, and the summary as set forth is in the agenda, the recitals and ordinances set forth. So,
Questions or comments? Excuse me.
I think it's just also fair to point out that, we're reallocating from previous bonds to the public, and a lot of this is from good fiscal management of our
Exactly right.
projects to be able to have these funds available. And that the items in the water and sewer, anything that's in a bond and that money can only be used for that or any type of projects in that line, just for public edification.
Thank you. Good clarification. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2771 for the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2771 for the first reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 2772 for the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Gregory, Mr. Boda. Ms. Boucher.
ordinance number 2772, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Salisbury amending and supplementing ordinance number 2394, passed by council on July 18th, 2016, approved by the mayor of the city on July 19th, 2016, and effective on July 19th, 2016, referred to herein as ordinance number 2394, as supplemented to date in order to, one, authorize and empower the city to use and apply certain investment earnings on the $20,030,000, for the record, that's 20,030,000, City of Salisbury Public Improvements and Refunding Bonds of 2016 issued on July 28, 2016, referred to as the 2016 bonds, to the project identified herein as raw water line at Naylor Mill Road, and two, identify such additional project as a project for all purposes of ordinance number 2394 as supplemented, providing that this title is a fair statement of the substance of this ordinance, authorizing certain city officials to take certain actions in connection with the transactions contemplated by this ordinance, providing that the provisions of this ordinance shall be liberally construed, and otherwise generally relating to the use of the proceeds of the 2016 bonds. And finally, this last ordinance before you tonight is, or was drafted by bond counsel, and that is a summary as I've read.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of ordinance number 2772 for the first reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Chair votes aye. Ordinance number 2772 for the first reading is approved by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Boucher.
You're welcome.
That concludes the regular meeting items on the agenda. We do have a closed session right now, and I will read the notification. The Salisbury City Council will convene at 6 p.m. on Monday, January 9th, 2023, for the regularly scheduled council meeting in the council chambers of the Government Office Building and by way of Zoom video conferencing. The public is invited to attend. At approximately 7:05, upon adjournment of the council meeting, council will convene in closed session to discuss an appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more of specific individuals in accordance with the annotated Code of Maryland 3-305B1. Before I call for a motion, I think what we'll do now is take closing remarks from the administration and then from the council, and then we'll go into closed session.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to make sure folks had two events on their calendars. Should have gotten an email from the Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure. The county's hosting a business after hours event on Thursday at the Civic Center from 5 to 7. We'll have a heavy presence from our office, but I think it'd be great if a strong showing from the council as well. And then on Friday, we've got the Salisbury Fire Department swearing in and promotion ceremony at Salisbury University at 6 p.m. So I know with the retirement of Chief Records, there's a number of individuals that are getting promoted and a few new hires. So we're excited for that. So hope to see you all there.
Cool. Thank you. Mr. Boda?
Looking forward to Friday and some of the promotions and hiring. That's going to be a good event. Always good to see new firefighters coming online. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay. Ms. Blake?
Yes, I do have a little announcement. I didn't know this myself, but January is National Blood Donor Month. Apparently, according to the American Red Cross, since 1970, they use January as the National Blood Donor Month because it is the month of the whole entire year where donations even drop off more, mainly due to weather and illness. So just remember, if you are healthy enough, please donate blood. And plus, it's National Blood Donation Month.
Mrs. Gregory?
Just want to give a shout out to the EMS and fire department again. They came out. We had a little incident over the weekend, and you know, they're always quick and so professional, and they do such an amazing job of getting in there and taking care of the patient. So I just wanted to give them another little props. And other than that, also because of that, we were at the hospital. Please be patient with the hospital staff. They're severely understaffed right now, and just please be patient with them. They're doing their best. The folks there, they work really, really hard. And if you want to save them some work, go get your vaccine.
Thank you, Michelle. I've got a couple of items. I had the pleasure this Saturday of working with Operation We Care in preparing
Nice.
packages for law enforcement, and today is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And I think we packed 180 boxes just in recognition of what the men and women of law enforcement do. Secondly, as I always do, I will second Angela's plea for blood donations. We're in desperate need, and we have been for it's almost going on a year, believe it or not, where we've been rationing. So, and last, I would like to just let everyone know and ask for their prayers. April's mom died yesterday, and it's sad. And she's taking it very hard, obviously. But if you just keep her in your prayers, it would be greatly appreciated. I will now entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved?
Second.
Blake? And seconded by Mrs. Gregory. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the vote in favor is 4, opposed is 0, and absent is 1. And the time is 6:49. We discussed the appointment of a staff member. And we are adjourned.
I thought we were adjourned like when I went to the bathroom.